Good evening. I'll call to order the January. I'll wait for the go-ahead from you, Jonah. Thank you very much, sir. I'll call to order the Wenham FinCom meeting, January 23rd. It's 6:31, not too bad. And we're just getting started in our official budget process, hence the crowd here tonight to pepper us with questions and join in on the fun and the conversation. But actually, people do come to the selectmen's meeting, so for those who watch at home or watch the replay, certainly an invite, open invite, because this is going to be a challenging budget year and good opportunity to hear from department heads and others firsthand and ask questions and delve into it. So, all right, I guess we'll start in on the agenda. Leslie, do you want to kick off the overview FY19 budget discussion, and then I'm sure it'll be
I'll get
you
up to speed. As you know, the superintendent released their preliminary budget on January 3rd, and at that same time, the school committee tentatively approved that budget on the same night. The budget that the school committee adopted had an additional $400,000 in critical priorities. They also gave a level services, which was set to increase by 3.56. To include the priorities, it was going to increase us by 4.83%. As you know, we went through the budget in the last 6 months with the Peter, department heads, and everybody, and we put a 3% placeholder for the schools in there based on that. That was the number that we could reach to be at our levy limit and not go over. And that was also to include a 1.3% increase only in our expenses and town expenses. That said, we took the tentative budget from the school committee, which included the $400,000, and that makes us go over by $255,000. At the level service, it'll make us go over about $100,000 over the levy limit. That also, so you understand, that is taking out the $216,000 in new capital, which will be funded by free cash. Because if you remember, we certified free cash at $1.23 million. $750,000 is used to subsidize the budget. $250,000 we keep as a policy to remain in the balance, leaving us $232,000, taking $216,000 to fund the capital needs, leaving us approximately just under $20,000 in free cash. The BOS met on the 16th, and their guidance, not only for Peter and I and the FinCom, was that we were not to make any additional cuts to the budget, that you were just to go through your due process, and they want to notify the school committee where we stand with this tentative budget that they have approved on January 3rd. The letter is in your packet, which and it states exactly where the town stands based on the tentative budget with the $400,000 and $255,000 over. They are meeting tomorrow night, and so we want to get that letter out to them tomorrow morning. So, and then they finalize their budget on the 13th. I have the days different. It said the 14th. I really think it's the 13th, but and we'll know by that. So
a few weeks from now.
Yeah, not too long.
Okay, thanks. So big picture, town-wise, in terms of our FY19 budget, we're to the point where, having started back in October, Leslie and her office and Peter have, basically laid out everything with removing placeholders and filling in with the actual numbers as things are certified, free cash and everything else and the like along the way. Placeholder for school was removed and populated with, a number much higher than we hoped for, certainly, as they adopted tentatively January 3rd. So now they enter in a condensed, I think, phase of working through their budget specifics, particulars, and working towards a final approval.
Right, because the budget is presented or proposed by the superintendent. Now this is school committee's job to go through that and look at that budget and look at not only the school, but what it's doing to the town sides, both towns, Hamilton and Wenham. So. Right,
administration recommends it, school committee works with it, and then vote on it in a few weeks' time. And so we've got this kind of narrow window of overlap whereby we're working on our budget while they're working on theirs. It feels like our process is maybe longer. We're obviously not involved in their conversations. We don't have a seat at that table. That goes without saying, independent entity there. but we do want to convey to them, as we have in the past, where we stand with respect to affordability for the Wenham portion, the assessment to Wenham of the school committees, or the regional school districts rather, FY19 budget. And I think that's kind of a continuation of the discussions that we had beginning in early December timeframe with the school committee in terms of the articulating the specific range of affordability that we have on our side. But now, in light of, it's now in response to and in return to their tentatively proposed budget. If everyone's had already had a chance to take a look at, I know Carrie reviewed in detail and provided some edits and suggestions as well, and thank you for those. The next step here is to basically, we're not voting on this tonight. This isn't something we need to agree on right now, but we should be on the same page with respect to the purpose, the content, the meaning of it, and the intent with directing this on behalf of the Wenham Board of Selectmen and Wenham Finance Advisory Committee to not only the school committee members, but also both Hamilton and Wenham's administration and boards of selectmen, for purposes of just kind of broadly making sure that this is very carefully and clearly communicated where we're at, what we can afford. And of course, if we can't balance our budget under levy limit, then we're up against an operating override. And there's implications there as well as to how we pursue it, subject to BOS decisions, and we will be working closely with them should it come down to that. So I guess I'll just open up then to thoughts or comments or questions on this.
A question regarding, and we may not know this, Leslie, the Hamilton budget, are they impacted negatively in the same way at the superintendent's proposed tentative budget financially?
Financially, they're not in the same.
They won't need an override?
They don't need an override.
Even with the tentative superintendent's budget?
Not the same.
So I
See you later.
Yeah, thanks.
I attended the January 3rd meeting as a resident, and I think the school committee would like to hear more from the residents of the town, because they're a little bit of a quandary. You know, it's a volunteer position, obviously, and they want to do what's best, and what's best for the school, what's best for the town. But a lot of the capital structure documents that I spoke to, there wasn't a lot of detail behind that. A lot of place fillers were put in. So some of those capital structures, the larger ones, like the sprinkler system for Winthrop, that $600,000, now $1 million, is a placeholder. The $3 million for the new roof for the school is a placeholder. So there's money in there that I think needs to be more defined. But I don't think the residents, I was the only resident who was there, and I only, and there's only a short time for us to speak, and I was neutral on the fields, trying to gather more information of what's going on, because there's two sides, right? There's the school budget and then the addition of the schools, excuse me, the addition of the fields. So there was a meeting November, December of last year, maybe earlier, where no resident showed up about the zoning, like for or against. So I think the impression they received was that the town wants the fields. So now that I went and asked him more questions, I was still the only one there, that I think there still needs to be a deeper dive into some of the financial things and the capital structure, and that takes up a lot of the budget going forward. I did leave a message, again, as a resident, for the assistant superintendent, but he's having knee surgery over the next couple of weeks, and he's gonna, I don't know from a timing wise if we'll get answers as a resident, but I am confused a little bit on the budget, because there's a lot of placeholders, and I don't know what we're giving up or what we're getting for all these additional capital structures. For instance, if we're spending $3 million on a field, are we giving up a state-of-the-art computer robotics lab? Like, I don't, that's part of.
Is the $3 million in here? I didn't know that the field was in here.
No, that's
No,
not.
no,
It's not, so
Right, but
it's a capital, but I might have a copy here still.
Is it in their critical priorities?
No.
Oh.
No, it's not, no,
That's a-
they're mostly
that's
positions.
separate.
copy here for you if you want. So I think that's the next up. I understand the one thing I think that needs to be set, and my math is going to be off, so please don't throw anything at me. But a standard operating budget year to year, with some capital improvements, is still an increase of roughly $730,000 from FY18 to 19, right? So once the schools are done being paid off, the high school and middle school, that's roughly $780,000, $760,000 bill that comes off. So once that bill is done being paid, we already have the money to pay for for this budget going forward without the additional override that may happen within the town, if that makes sense.
Right, but you got to look at that the capital is separate. Right now, we're looking at just their operating budget.
Right.
The capital will go to warrant as a debt exclusion, which will be added to that. We don't really, if that is voted on, that's separate than this. This operating.
Yeah, but the bill, the $750,000 or so debt is not part of that budget that they provide, like the debt obligation for those buildings.
Right,
They're
and
not part of that budget?
Yes, it is, but just what we're talking about in this particular case, in this letter, is just their expense, their operating expenses.
Their net operating budget for
Not,
FY19.
the capital is a totally separate thing.
Maybe I'm not articulating, or maybe I am and I'm just saying it wrong. But the bill that we have for that debt
Yes.
could be used to pay for just the operating budget, correct? Or not correct? So once the school debt is paid off in FY 19 or 20.
Right, 19, some debt is dropping off. There'll be
Yeah.
one more payment.
So
And then
can
they're
that
gonna
debt be
roll-
used for this, for their
The debt
operating
will
budget?
be
That money?
rolled.
Like that money?
I guess if they didn't, I'm not sure of that answer, so.
Okay, so that was my thinking, that if we have this extra.
But they're rolling
Yeah, I
in
think
more
you're
capital projects.
Yeah, you're suggesting that as debt rolls off, if you haven't incurred new debt and replaced it with other projects, you
Yeah.
then have more money for your operating
Correct.
expenses. I think
Yeah,
that generally is fair. And I think what Leslie's trying to state is that, phase one, turf or not, good idea,
Yeah.
bad idea, somewhere in between, whatever, go ahead or not. It is the operating
Okay.
budget for FY19, which wouldn't include any of the debt expense for funding that.
and I see what you're
Yeah,
saying, but they're
$3.5
also
million
rolling
anyway.
that out with the operating expenses. We
Yes.
just want to make
The operating
it
expenses.
clear
Yeah.
about this operating expense.
Right, and maybe what's deserved is a better description of the timing of major debt
Correct.
expenditures maturing and to the degree to which they're replaced by others,
Right,
and
that's
for what
this is
reason.
doing.
That's the
That's going to
capital.
roll off, they're replacing it with the other.
Right,
That's what's-
right.
So I think that in that I'm finally getting it. I think it's gonna be difficult for the town to get around it. And I think they still need input, yes or no, from the town or from the residents and the parents. The back and forth, the additional costs and things
Right,
like that.
what it
And,
means.
So,
Yeah.
if anyone's watching or listening, is that yes, no, or neutral, the school would like to have your opinion as a parent. And I'll end it there.
The letter, I support the letter, it's balanced. It gets across to the school committee what our position is, where our financial problems lie, and it makes it pretty clear that we would have to go to an override and the implications that has. So I think I watched the selectmen's meeting on TV. It was very helpful. And so I support this letter in its form, maybe with some edits that Carrie did. Thank you. To go forward. And I think our position now is to wait and see over the next 10 days. We don't have the window's pretty short here, to see what they come back with. And then I guess the question that we have, Alex, Mike, you guys have the experience here. Do we enter into negotiations, or do we say to ourselves, this is what we can afford? This is what we can afford to do. The level service budget, the 3%, or do we negotiate around 2 or 3 positions that are in the, I guess, finally, I just want to say that the superintendent's budget is a budget that I think reflects the real needs of the school community. I don't think it's, a hyper-inflated budget. Their job is to advocate for the best that they need to do for the children of these two communities in the school system. And I appreciate that. Our job is to try to negotiate as best as we can do what our financial resources are and how we can make that work for the community and for the schools. So I guess we wait and see what they come back with, and we move forward from there. Is be my thoughts on this on the budget. And the letter's very good. I appreciate it.
But it makes it hard for you and for the rest of us to do a Plan B, in the sense of if there's an override and if the town agrees and your taxes go up and cover all the stuff. No, that's the way it is. That's fine. But if they don't, because I still thought at the beginning of the fiscal year they still talked about, well, what if the override, gets voted down? Then what do you do? Well, it's going to be hard to do a Plan B at that time to present any Plan B, right?
Well, then the school would need to alter its budget if the money's not
Right, there's a
there.
whole process, and I think really at this point, we'll put the letter out. The school committee will have it, know where we stand, so that everybody knows where we are at this point, and see if they make any changes, and if it doesn't, maybe there's a chance, and I think that was mentioned in the BOS meeting of the 16th, that maybe the BOS and the FinCom, again, meet prior to their budget being approved.
But that,
And see.
from my comment, ignored the school budget. So Plan B was, what do we do internally in terms of if the school budget held, what would we do in terms of our budget and its impacts?
We would raise taxes.
Yeah. It would have
No,
to.
no, 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 no. Let me rephrase the question a different way. Okay, so and I still thought when we went ahead with this, there was two plans. A, override, B, no override in terms of budget, people voting on no override, and us on the Wenham side saying, well, if we took further cuts, this is what it would mean in terms of lack of services you would get.
So great point. You're right.
Yep.
Very early on, that was kind of a fork in the road policy-wise that could be met. It was met by the BOS, and we now have, so in starting this official process of our going through, as you know, the budget, from this point, BOS has directed to not seek further cuts in an effort to make up for the shortfall in the budget deficit that would otherwise be needed to balance it without an override. There would obviously be hugely significant, given that, the town's increase at 1.5% versus what we're looking at, 3.53 for level services. But I don't know why we even really throw 3.53 out there, since it was, or 3.56, whatever it was, since it's on the order of 4.8.
Right.
Really, that was the ask. So you're right, that was discussed early on, and I think always is, as we enter into these discussions in the kind of year-end phase, are further cuts attainable on the town side? And we've already, I say we, but Leslie and Peter have already done just that, to trim where possible.
Town departments.
That's right.
Right,
With the town
so
departments.
Yeah.
at this point, we're not seeking to follow any policy directive to cut. I mean, we look for saving. I mean, that's what we do. We look for opportunities to save and be more efficient and to move things around in a smart way as we hear from departments and understand what the true need is and how it's going to be met, the obligation to meet those needs. But I think to Jim's point, there's not much negotiation really that we have historically engaged in.
That was my question. Has there been
Well-
what has happened when this is?
Of course,
happened before?
the school committee is an independent entity, as you guys know better than I, with a charge to deliver the best, this world-class education. And we're here to add in the subject to the real-world financial constraints that we have as as a member community that's one of two paying for it. So we're really doing no more, and certainly this letter, since we're not going through it for those who are watching, what it doesn't do is in any way discredit the school committee's tentatively adopted budget, be they the standard, year-over-year needs or the critical priorities. I agree that they seem to me, as someone who is not a professional educator, in the direction of the types of things you need to do for out-of-district needs long-term and the like. With that said, it doesn't mean I'm automatically on board. It just means that in no way are we saying that these are problematic or incorrect requests, merely that we can't afford them without an operating override.
Yeah, everyone's coming to the table with a good faith effort.
Correct.
To try and make it work.
Correct.
I have a clarifying question. So the school committee voted tentatively on a budget January 3rd. Had they seen the budget before that at all? Or that was their first occasion? So I just didn't know if there's any kind of negotiating that had happened prior to that. And I know they're in that process now for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
But I just was curious where the school committee was prior to the 3rd in the process of the district budget.
Did you get a sense from attending?
Yeah, I think that was a presentation from the superintendent to the board, so I think this was the first time, unless they saw it maybe 24 hours earlier, that was the first time most of them saw it. So they had a lot of questions. One point was for the increase in the budget that I forgot to bring up earlier is the town spends a lot of money on outside sources for certain student needs. Mm-hmm. That some of that cost is going to be brought internally and will save money in the future. So there was a lot of questions around that. There's a lot of questions about, believe it or not, getting into the details and things like that. So my impression, long answer is yeah, my impression was that was the first time they saw it.
That's the sense I got as well from conversations with folks, is that it was more or less their first view of it. Yeah.
I was just curious.
And I don't know what their typical process is over the next few weeks, how they piece it together, any changes that they wish to effect before the final budget is adopted, and clearly with what we're up against this year and the fiscal challenges, communication I think is critical. With citizens and with our partners in Hamilton. We'll be certainly engaging in discussions with FinCom on the Hamilton side, and no doubt working super closely with Leslie, Peter and BOS, and same over in Hamilton. So to that end, where this is outgoing communication, if we're on the receiving end, that's fine. The Chronicle would be another an article, another communication. Of which we're all on the receiving end, unless any of us here wrote it, which none of us did. And I think we would seek to also, I've spoken with David Wenger on the Hamilton FinCom, and I think a communication is in order along the same lines to further clarify some of the distinctions, some of the descriptions of the school committee's budget tentatively adopted in the Chronicle as not necessarily the way we would describe them to a voter, to a taxpayer. So that would be another outgoing communication, hopefully in the near term, but on that note, not as quickly as this. So lastly, the timing on this is there's some urgency because, as Leslie pointed out, the school committee meets tomorrow. So we will proceed with the plans to deliver this, maybe with a couple edits as well, but more or less as we've reviewed it, certainly in terms of the spirit and tone and all that stuff, to them tomorrow. Leslie will do so. Okay. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks.
So, the letter.
We have to vote on, well, it's just discussion, right?
This is for discussion this evening, that's right. All right, so I think that brings us to water, right? Eric, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So, you've done this before.
I've done this before. I've seen new members of the board.
Thank you, and you're the first up, so take it away.
All right, well, in For anybody who doesn't know, who's new to the board, the water department is run basically independent budget from the general fund. We're a special revenue fund, and we have 3 elected commissioners who set the water rates to pay for our operating costs. So we use no tax money, we only use water funds. We haven't had, well, we did add a conservation rate this past year, but we haven't had a water rate increase since 2009. And we've basically been able to keep a level funded budget this whole time. And our revenues do pull in enough that we have some that goes to, we have a reserve account, a water reserve surplus account. And every year we do put a little bit more in that for things like the capital purchase that we're gonna make this year of a new utility truck, which will be a town meeting article to transfer from our surplus to purchase that. Not sure if you have any other questions about the water department, how we're run, or about the budget we presented.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go through some of the, I mean, it's straightforward, of course. It's that which has been provided, the line items speak for themselves, but we can take the opportunity, of course, to ask questions and like. So, the nature of the fund itself, that's like mandated, right, by the state in terms of the structure of it?
It is, because it's something that the Mass DEP likes to have separate from the town's own. Basically, they like to have everything separate, so that the water department, there's no fear of the town taking money from the water department to fund other things.
Right.
And then we worry about the safety of the water.
Right, exactly, right. Which would kind of distract you or limit your ability to provide
Yeah.
the real good water that you do.
Is the conservation rate, is that when you go above a certain amount of
It's
quantity?
above 75,000 gallons per quarter.
Then the rate changes per gallon, it increases?
It doubles from the previous rate.
And has that has been implemented?
It was implemented, it's been 2 billing cycles now.
And did you notice any change from, comparing it to prior years, the same time?
Well, I mean, we did send out notices to people. We still had people who used above that. I think we'll notice it more next year. People who did pay those higher bills this summer, I think they'll realize that maybe they need to cut back next year on their lawn watering. And, we should see, hopefully we'll see that decrease.
It was helpful for myself, because of the bill, I've had a water leak. That I found out. I was went on for a while.
The bill told you?
The bill, I was like, I got a big bill. I started looking around, and there was a leak outside the house.
Outside your house?
Yeah, it's the sprinklers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Just a quick, I might have missed it. What is the construction debt completed for the water towers?
We have one that dropped off this year, coming up. And then this will be the last year.
So this is the final payment, that's 75,000?
This is the final payment, yes, and that's for the pump storage up on Iron Rail. And what we're also doing is we're looking at adding a reserve fund that's gonna be for capital improvements that we're gonna, so instead of dropping our water rates, we're gonna keep the water rates where they are because we are low. And we're gonna start funding a capital improvement fund. So when we do come up to the, replacing water mains, infrastructure improvements, that we'll have some money to be able to fund those.
Because your infrastructure's pretty old, isn't it?
It's fairly old. It's not as old as a lot around here. 50s, 60s, some 70s. And in some pretty good shape. So.
So that's the last payment.
And the big pieces of your infrastructure are two tanks, right? A tank at Iron Rail?
Yep, 2 water tanks.
The one up the hill?
Yeah. I mean,
The pumps?
the big cost is water main replacement, because that's tearing the street up,
Right.
replacing them,
Right,
reconnecting services.
right. And is that, any of that planned? Or
That-
is that kind of thing?
that's
you
still
just-
down the road
when it
for us.
breaks? Yeah,
You said that, when when they talk about our aging infrastructure in Massachusetts, you're talking about places like Newburyport, Salem, or Boston, where you have 1800s, you know, that they still replacing wooden water mains.
Yeah.
Brick and what, yeah, right.
So,
Okay. The debt reduction was that painting?
yeah, that was a tank painting on Lord's Hill.
Okay, so that's done.
That's done.
And this is the last payment also on the construction of the iron rail?
Rail tank, yes.
So, okay. And then you've got capital for the truck, 54,000?
54,000
Yeah.
for a new utility vehicle.
What kind of
And,
truck is that? Can we-
Probably just another utility body.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 1 ton, you know, with a
1 ton.
plow.
Yeah,
And that's replacing a 2008 that we have now, so.
yeah.
Which is actually gonna be going to the facilities director the facilities department. They're gonna use it as a backup vehicle for themselves, so.
Is it still running fine?
It still is,
Still
yes.
doing the job, but it's, I mean,
Yeah,
10
it's
years old
it-
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but ours, that truck is, you know, frontline every day. Also plows during the wintertime. You know, we help the DPW out plowing, so.
If they, from, sorry, go ahead.
How's it? No. That 75,000 that's what's gonna fund your rainy day fund construction going forward, once that last payment is off?
Yeah, I think we're starting off funding it around 35
Okay.
this coming year. That's about what came off. So that's gonna, you know, and then we can talk about going forward, what we're gonna do.
That's all I have, thank you.
Sure, thanks. I was just gonna ask if there were, it sounds like the use of the reserves to pay for, like capital in this case of the truck is a newer approach?
Not for us.
No, you've been
No.
doing that?
Yeah, a couple
Okay.
years ago, we had purchased another vehicle to replace another one,
Okay,
and we did the same thing.
okay.
And we've done some improvements at our wells with that money over the past, you know, over the years.
We had talked about over the past couple of years, the conservation effort quite a bit, based on the high volumes, a small percentage of users, you know, drawing a very large volume, you know, in summer months, obviously, and I think that was a great idea to add the kind of penalty rates or whatever, for lack of a better term, in the name of conservation. And
Yep, you either reduce
Yeah.
you reduce water usage or you get more money.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you know,
We'd rather
and-
reduce.
Yeah,
yeah, and if we
Yeah,
can reduce the
absolutely.
water usage, I mean, we may have to look at a rate increase at the lower tiers. But, I mean, it also leaves us room for, you know, growth in town, you know, and development,
Yep.
so.
Is there any pressure to reduce rates at any point from not from a regulatory standpoint, right?
No,
Yeah,
no, I mean, if you start reducing them, then you see water usage start just coming right back up.
right, exactly, yeah, bounce around, there's no need,
Yeah.
yeah, ours seems very reasonable.
That's an excellent point around additional development. Do you have for example, I'll just use this as an example, the 23 units that are going in down at Flynn's, for example, 23. Can you project out how much water those units will use? You probably know what a single-family house typically uses on the average, and how that draws down on
Oh,
our
yeah.
system?
Yeah, and with any new development that have gone into town, we've had restrictions put on them that they're not allowed to use town water for irrigation.
Yeah.
So they can use alternative sources. They may use the well that's already there existing for the golf course. But they won't, you know, so we won't have these spikes in the summertime that runs the water up. And, you know, in newer homes are so efficient now anyways with the, you know, the low flow toilets and the dish, everything is really efficient. So the state the state would like to see a normal household under 65 gallons per person per day. And that's the goal that the state has set for everybody. So.
I don't have any more
No
questions.
questions?
No. I
All
asked
right.
all my questions at your first presentation a couple months ago.
I'm glad you listened.
Citizens Academy?
Well, no, when
Oh,
we
no?
had the other round earlier,
Oh,
When we were
right.
a
with
couple
the-
months ago.
Yeah,
Board of
that's right.
Selectmen.
Before
Yeah.
the year ended.
But Eric couldn't make that meeting.
Yeah, but I asked a lot about water, so.
Yeah,
Ernest could tell you, he was probably more technical.
Yeah, it was great. I learned a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
very
we learned
good.
about some of the metals that might
Yeah.
be an issue but aren't really, so,
Yep.
yeah. That's good.
Well, thank you very much.
All right,
Sarah.
thanks so
You're
much. Diane's up? Cool. Town clerk?
Diane Bucco, your town clerk. My budget is right here. There's an increase. Primarily, if you look at it all, the increase has to do with the elections. There's more elections this year than there were last year, so if you go back a couple years, actually, I was told it's a 4-year cycle with the clerks. So they kind of cycle that way with the amount of, and everything really relies on the election costs. So I'm here to answer any questions if you'd like.
The election
you have
cost was
something.
about $300. Did I read that right? Give or take? Yeah.
And
okay.
election, well, there's equipment, and then there's the,
Oh,
Right,
oh,
yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
just
Yep,
increased
yep,
by
yep.
about $300
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the previous year.
Yeah, yeah.
is it it's only 300 more?
Yeah, most of your expense, or increase was just the 2% COLA and the merit for you. If you look at,
It was election officer
Election
cost,
costs.
they increased 2,400, and equipment cost was 3,100 from last year.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's 3 elections
yep.
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
fiscal year and only
Yep.
1
Yep.
last year.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I have a question about, we did extended voting.
Yep.
Did we do extended voting last year?
We did, was that last year?
Extended voting hours?
Yep.
Sure, I think so,
Maybe,
yeah.
yep, that was that fiscal year, we did.
Did that impact the budget at all?
It,
Or did you just absorb it in existing
I
resources?
had extra to cover, but the state will be paying us, I think we're at $320 coming back.
Just because I've heard.
Because I did most of the work,
$20.
so I didn't bring in extra,
Did it
employees.
require much more work?
24/7 for 11 days. I had to be,
That's a
I had
yes.
to be able to open polls up as soon as the town hall opened. So I'd have to get here early to make sure that the voting booths and the machine was ready at 9 a.m. And I had to allow voting up until the end of town hall hours. So then I'd have to close it out and tally it every night, or come in early the next morning and tally. And so we had Monday through Saturday. We had 2 weeks. It was 11 days, because I didn't do it on Sunday.
But you have to pay somebody to help you tally, though, correct?
I had some help. I used a lot of my senior tax work-offs during the day. I did most of it on my own. I didn't bring any of it. Will change it going forward, because it was a little bit more stressful than necessary. It took away a lot of time preparing for the election day itself. So I would do it a little bit differently and probably hire some people to come in, and they would do it in this room rather than at my office for parts of the day, so that I could do all the other things that we do during the day. But that's not till November.
Like
so I'll figure it out.
largely, you absorb the costs within your existing budget?
Yes,
Thank you, I was just curious.
but it was fun. It was fun to meet the voters one-on-one.
Because
Yeah.
some towns, granted are bigger, had substantial cost increases.
They did. Some had prepared for it somehow, not knowing what it was, somehow they prepared for it. But they did have other towns did it differently. Very few did it in the clerk's office during the day. They would, so I didn't have to hire anyone because I was there. So now I see why they did that.
Right, next time.
But you learn as you go, so.
Okay. I was just
Again, there were
curious.
positives to it. It was an exhausting couple weeks, that's for sure.
Do you know if it increased voter turnout at all?
It did not increase voter turnout at all.
So it was a convenience thing, not a.
It was a
turnout
complete
thing.
convenience thing.
Okay.
And I don't think it brought in anybody that wasn't going to vote. So I don't think it did what it was supposed to do, which was to increase voter turnout and to get the vote to the population in Wenham. In other cities and towns, it probably did, but I don't, not necessarily here.
Just from a stat perspective, do we have a high voter turnout?
We have always had a very high voter turnout
Okay, that's
in
good.
all elections,
Okay.
but it's been falling. It's been falling. I can't remember now. how much we have, but our local elections have been falling off very consistently.
Civic.
So we're
money.
losing our standards.
Yeah.
Got to get back to getting everybody out. My goal in 2014 was to have 97% voter turnout. We haven't come close yet.
Giving up hope.
Yeah.
Is this our first year with the new machine?
No, we brought the new machine in early in 2016.
Oh, goodness, okay, yeah. And that's working fine.
That works fine. It's slower because it's
good.
more accurate. So it makes an imprint of the ballot. So it slows down the process a little bit for someone who just wants it to keep going. You know, you put your ballot in and it takes a good 10 seconds
It does.
to deposit it.
to
Whereas
stay.
before it would just fly right through, but of course it would jam and, you know, it wasn't quite as accurate, I guess. Or as,
Uh,
I don't know.
Certain, hopefully it's accurate
Yes,
either way.
I meant
Okay,
ac-
yeah,
I did mean
it's
not as
it's
accurate.
Deliberate or something, I don't know.
It was, it takes an actual photocopy of the ballot as it goes through. The other one was very accurate, but it did have a lot that you'd have to pull out and then hand count. So I had less hand counting because the machine worked better. So nothing else? No other questions?
Good stuff. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Easy.
Thanks so
All right.
much for all you
I
do.
know.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too.
Well,
Hopefully all departments will be as
Succinct.
succinct, right? Probably not the case.
Probably not the case.
Nope. Beginning tomorrow, we've got some big departments,
bigger.
some bigger spends,
Yes,
bigger
couple of big
expenditures.
departments,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
Couple of big departments.
yeah. We will be going through a lot of paper. Will there be, updates to those numbers as well for tomorrow?
Yes, I believe in, I don't think to the
Just
sheets,
some
but I think
tweaks.
just some tweaks to maybe the overall budget sheet. I've just trying to go back, but I didn't have enough time to
Okay,
totally tweak it, so I may give you some updated,
okay.
big budget sheets
So,
tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, always.
Right.
And then, so on that note, you gave us a lot of these today,
Yes.
but, they reflected updates.
Yeah, the majority. I think maybe the miscellaneous I might have just given to all of you
Okay.
because I was sending you just.
Oh, that's, you were
basically.
sending some anyway, yeah, thank you.
There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 changes in the miscellaneous.
Okay.
That have changed from your budget.
Should we cover those now? The
Sure.
miscellaneous?
I mean,
Okay.
I'll just, want me to just go through the whole thing so you get,
That'd be great.
is that good?
Sounds good.
All right.
So,
So it's in the miscellaneous.
we're town hall 160? No.
It's under
No, that's
miscellaneous FY19.
So if you follow the packet I gave you, I believe,
go.
I don't think I did the same order as them.
I just
So that won't help you, will it?
This one here, which one?
So I'm gonna
Yep.
do miscellaneous?
Okay, yep.
In this, it's under the miscellaneous.
Right.
I'll
The
just go
budget
with
sheets, I'm
that.
not sure exactly match how this was typed out, just the summary of it. But I'm gonna go through the summary sheet, and if we need to look at the sheet, or you have any questions, the sheet right here,
Yep.
the one I gave you will have highlighted ones that have the changes from your books. You have that one, the one I gave in your packet.
Got it.
I think I've highlighted all that. So anything that's not highlighted would have been the same that you had in your
Is the
original
binder?
packets.
Okay.
In your binder, sorry, your binder. So you see that the selectmen decreased by 110 in their salary and wages, and that again, if you remember, that was just some minor adjustments when I was going through the spreadsheets from last year to this year, that's all. So that's just minor. The town administrator does reflect a change of, an increase of 17,760 in salary and wages. That reflects a new starting pay with a new contract with him for 19 through 21, and, which included a 2% COLA and the merit increase for FY 18.
That's a 3-year total, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's increased. Town hall, we have increased that by $688.31 in salary and wages. That is reflecting your the COLAs and the 2% merit. Plus there was, we also shifted in FY 18. The minutes were in the expense line, and it really should be in the salary line, as it's just, really just accounting purposes to move that there, as well as additional meetings that have been put upon the minute taker. So that has increased, which is where you'll see, we changed that bottom line from 250 Jim, that you had asked,
Right.
in 255, so that additional 5,000 is in the meetings. So it's approximately 124 meetings that we have estimated, and we just adjusted that figure today, so.
Can I just go back to a
Yo,
second?
sure, yeah,
So
sorry.
David asked, you asked David about the line item, town administrator increase of 17,760.
Yep.
17,760 salary wages. So that's not a 3-year, that's,
Per year.
that's per year. So I
Okay.
just
Per
wanna make
year.
sure.
Oh, I thought you said,
Yeah.
19, I thought he meant a 3-year contract, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
3, oh,
No,
sorry,
I
maybe
thought-
that is what you meant, 3-year contract.
No, I meant, was that 17, that's per year?
That's
That's per
for-
year.
Got it.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
interpreted that.
I'm sorry, I thought you were contract, sorry. I
No, it's
misinterpreted.
a larger revision of the contract based
Correct.
on
Got
comps and
Yep.
BOS.
Correct, yep.
Doing a great job.
Yep.
Well
BOS
deserved.
approved.
Well deserved, exactly.
deserved.
BOS
Yep.
approved it.
Yep. More of that.
Sorry about that.
More of that to go around, hopefully.
The IT implement is level services, so we haven't changed anything there from before. Town council, we did do an increase of 5,000 to contract services for outside counsel.
Leslie, I'm sorry,
Yep,
go
sorry.
back to IT.
Yes.
This is a little bit more work-related. Do we have, who's in charge of IT for the town?
We contract out,
Microsoft thing.
yeah,
That's-
micro support group.
Okay,
They're in
Yes,
Beverly.
yes, Beverly.
Okay.
Yep,
thank you.
yep, and we call them, they're here, I mean,
They serve all the IT needs.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, everything, I mean, we call them, they come, they've done
They're in
everything.
charge
They were
of
just,
sec-
they
they're
were
in
just with
charge
us
of
in our
IT
department the other day.
They're in charge of IT security encryption and all that stuff
They
too?
do all of
we-
that.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
So the town council, we've done the 5,000, that was just anticipating existing land use litigation that will continue in FY '19. Reserve fund, we've left that level funded, the same as we've had the 125,000. And you know that we're already halfway through there and we've done 2 minor adjustments, minor transfers.
Can I ask a question on
Sure.
the reserve fund for
Mhm.
me? I think when you started the meeting, so I'm just clarifying, usually we laid out in the past, I thought we did, capital budget needs. I mean, there were actually specific things that we budgeted for, and that money was reserved for those capital needs. And did I hear, or maybe misunderstood, that you're gonna use the reserve funds as a way of paying for capital funds?
So no, the new capital needs
Okay.
was 216,000
Yeah,
added to
yeah.
FY '19.
Got
They were put in the operating budget,
Yep,
so your big budget doc, you would have had that all listed in the items, and I don't know if I brought
well, you
that.
used the term free cash to pay for capital needs, so maybe I misunderstood it.
Right, so I pulled that out of the operating budget
Okay.
because we had an additional $232,000 in free cash certified for FY '17. So instead of having it in an operating budget, we're going to basically pay for that outside the operating budget with that free cash.
Oh,
That
okay,
additional
okay.
free cash, not the reserve fund. The reserve fund is for outside,
Mhm.
something that we unexpectedly
Yeah,
thought of.
okay.
Those are
all
two
right.
separate
Then I did-
Correct,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
correct.
Separate accounts.
125,000, our last meeting, we did
Yep.
those reserve fund transfers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's the two.
That was a good question. I was
And
kind
there's-
of
So the,
I got
so the
my-
capital needs were in the operating budget
But I
in
did
each
not.
department.
Yep.
Some, we have some capital needs that, are done differently, but those particular 216 brand-new ones were in the operating budget, pulled out, and are gonna be paid with that extra free cash. Municipal audit is, again, level funded. We don't, we have that contract with him through 19, so that won't change for next year. The street lighting, he increased by 2,931.
So we put in new lights to save us money and it costs us.
Well, because we
the
own them,
rates go
so
up.
they have to budget in case something was to need fixing, is really what it comes down to. So
Okay,
we own the
alright.
streetlights
Yeah.
now,
Yep,
so he's just added additional cost in case.
contingency.
Right.
Okay.
That's all it is.
yeah.
Mhm.
This isn't the power to,
No, it's if
Right.
something happens to the streetlight, just for something to go wrong with it, yes, right.
Okay.
So, right, maintenance costs. The refuse is increased by 10,950, and that reflects the 8,000 in collection cost increase because we have the new contract with Casella for 10 years, plus a 2% increase in the disposal fee, which
much choice. so.
How did that, why did that change? I remember we did that contract. It was obviously a big
Hills?
surprise.
Yeah, that.
They went out of, they went.
Yeah, well,
It was abrupt, wasn't
They
it?
went-
Right,
yeah.
absolutely,
Oh,
but
yeah.
why the, yeah, there was like 180 grand extra we had to pay or whatever. Why the 10,950 now again?
2%?
Because it just, the cost
it
increased
bumped
and then
up.
the two, and he, I mean, he knows more about
Okay.
this, Peter, we may have to
No worries.
ask him, but
It's contractual,
it's more.
How much
With
is
the
the
seller.
total, excuse me,
no,
how much is the total contract for refuse? Just, I mean, just,
wasn't it 350 or something like
Yeah.
that? Substantially higher
We'll
than
have
what we had with
DPW
Hills.
here tomorrow.
Maybe that's why I
Well,
helped.
Yeah, and he will
Right,
definitely.
it's
know what
outside
to
of
ask.
theirs though. We
Oh.
the town contracts with.
But on the
Oh,
refuse,
it's not
too.
Yeah, but
directly.
he'll.
It's not DPW,
Actually,
no.
on the refuse. Contract is 375, 950,
Yeah.
going into FY '19.
376.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
The issue
And
with the
180
refuse is
grand
no
more than it was,
competition.
or something like that, when we had to emergency come up with the new
Right,
plan.
last year we had to do that,
Uh-huh.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I recall, I'm probably off there a little bit.
Do you offhand know how the pink bag program's going?
I heard it was going well, but I don't know how, I mean, I did hear it, I mean,
I can tell you that if you put one bag out, you'll get 7 back in return, twisted around your 68,000 gallon.
I mean, that was probably something we'll speak to Peter about, but, I've heard from, somebody that I work with, that, I mean, they love it, so,
Yeah,
you know.
it's great.
Yeah.
Have you used it?
Well, I just used it once and then I was kind of done, and I think I'm done for a long time. So I was just curious, I could see in the
Oh, to see
beginning,
if,
there was quite a demand, I saw lots of
Yeah.
pink bags, and now I don't. And I just, for the company,
Is it-
obviously it's worth it because they signed a contract with us, but is it worth it? Are we utilizing it to the
To the
extent?
extent.
You know, it's one thing if they pick up a couple hundred bags versus 5 bags.
Mm.
They're doing the same route.
Mm.
I was just curious if people are
Mm.
using it, maybe we're less hoarders than I realized.
We could fill a lot of bags. Now, I did notice it, so in the large bins, which are great, I don't know if anyone has the big, massive bins that were really inexpensive. It was great the town got those
Yeah.
grant money and subsidized them. Anyway, yeah, a number of empty bags were wrapped around the handle to the
Mhm.
recycling, more than I
Do you
think
need some of
we'll
mine?
need. Clothes or bags? No, I need neither. I don't need any more
But we
stuff.
digress,
Totally.
as usual. Okay.
Retirement, that has increased by 61,854. We had projected a 9% increase. It came in, we have the exact number, so the number that's there, we were right on target, we were off by $200.
$200.
So we were right on target on that. The employee benefits, as you see, we have decreased by just over 70,000, and that's obviously because we opted out of the GIC, and we are going with a new health insurance, and it's gonna save us as well as the employees, so.
Outstanding.
so that's a, excuse me, that's a, you had originally an increase of 20,000 when this first came out, so that's a 90,000
And
shift.
based on what's come back with the GIC, it was really they have narrowed down their plans
Mhm.
for,
I saw the,
so it's gonna be, it was a great move.
And it's a good quality plan, obviously.
Mhm. Yep, and a lot of the
Well-
plans, these people that, people that we had here that were in, well, the people that were in some of these plans in the GIC are just gonna be moved into plans that they might not have wanted.
there's a lot of discussion about it at the state level,
Yeah, it's,
because they're removing Tufts, Harvard Pilgrim,
they're only keeping
and one other.
United, New England,
Yeah.
something New England,
Petition.
Fallon,
United
no,
Healthcare.
they're removing Fallon too, right?
Fallon, Tufts, and Harvard
those-
Pilgrim.
Those are biggies
huge.
to let go.
Oh, they're keeping Unicare,
Let go.
Unicare, New England, and one other one,
I
and
think it
two
was
of them.
United,
um,
United Health.
And Unicare is
But anyway.
actually very, it's a high-cost plan, so it would be very costly to the people that got moved into that for the town as well as the employees, so it would be very expensive.
Yeah, not to go too far down, are there any high deductibles available? High deductible plans?
Right now,
Yeah?
we had to have comparable plans going into this one, I don't know, and we're only locked into this for 1 year, so not,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just curious if that trend is yet making its way into the municipal plans.
Not as of yet, no,
Okay.
but, well,
Who
knows? Probably
It will, yeah, it will
I mean,
eventually.
it's not-
The general insurance is increasing by $3,708, and that's just a projected 3% increase, which includes, that's like the accident, fire and police, and there was one other, you told me, but that's just an increase. Obviously, the transfer out, the increase of 40,000, that's just our OPEB policy that we have in place to add 10,000 to that. We've done 30,000 this year, we're gonna do 40,000 for next year. And we funded that last year by free cash, but right now that's still in the operating budget. The merit increases to 29,105, again, a placeholder of 2% for next year. And as we talked before, the one-time capital, we've level funded it in your books. It had the 216, we've taken that out and made it. And that is where we stand.
Could you explain the capital, I mean, just so I understand it, I'm not questioning, so we had one-time capital in the original budget of 308,000.
Probably the original, but it ended up being 216,000.
Okay.
And,
We took that out and,
we had that in
Took
each
that out of-
individual
yeah,
departments. 3 were out of highway. I don't know if I have all that with me
Okay.
right now, but, it's probably the one
That's-
thing that I didn't bring with me.
right. I got it. It's
But
level
we took-
funded with the transfer from free cash.
Correct. So we take it out of the operating budget. We have that additional 232,000.
Yep.
Because 700, so we have 1,232,000 in free cash that was certified as FY '17. 750 of that is going to subsidize the operating budget. 250, policy-wise, we have to keep that balance, so
Yep.
that's just a policy set. Now, because we certified 1.23, we have an additional 232,000. So we can take that and take the 216 out there
Put it
and pay
into capital.
for that capital.
Mhm.
Still meeting our capital needs, but taking it out of the operating budget and lessening the burden on that, so,
Thank you.
does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Free cash 250 mandated, reserve fund 1.25
Correct.
also mandated.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep, those are the figures.
Great.
And I think that does it for our miscellaneous, right?
So, okay, thanks for the rundown on those.
Yeah.
Thoughts or questions on those?
No, it's pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
except for that last part. I'm joking.
What, the free cash?
Yeah, but now that I have it, yeah.
Do you got it? I mean, I did, it's okay, right? Yeah, okay. All right.
Next year.
Yeah, the decrease for GIC, I guess, is big. At the balance,
Huge.
on balance, I remember it being.
And that is
ma-
being really conservative in the numbers. I took the numbers, they gave us numbers. I did a spreadsheet to make sure that people that were in the higher plans in Unicare, because we have 3 different levels in the Harvard Pilgrim where they can go. And really, you don't know where they're gonna go. So just adjusted, so there still could be a little bit of savings, but I think it's a good number.
Mhm.
Yeah, am I recalling that at one point the estimate was 100,000 savings from GIC?
Correct, and I think, so based on our spreadsheet,
Yeah.
that's placing people in maybe a little bit of higher category, but again, no one knows, not even the people that came in to tell us these plans.
That it's
And then
conservative
also to
estimates.
put additional plans in that budget sheet to make sure that if we have somebody come in to take health insurance, when open enrollment happens, if we have somebody that isn't in insurance, could take insurance.
Mhm.
And we always account for a family plan at that point in time. But
Mhm.
again, if it's over, that'll fall to free cash anyways. So
Mhm.
it's better to have a more solid number.
Yeah, I think it was
Sure.
projected to be potential 50K savings in lieu of 50K.
Yes, but there could be
increase
some
given the plan.
changes down
Based on enrollment.
Yeah, and I think you need to account for that, so.
Right.
yeah. What else? There was, I think, one more thing there, just, I think I was supposed to mention to you, there might be some, personnel changes that are being brought to the Board of Selectmen in another possible board changes brought to the board in their next meeting on February 3rd, or I may have the date wrong, but it's that first meeting. And what you need to know right now, high level, that it could affect the bottom line of about $23,000
Plus or minus?
plus added to it, so it would increase it. Again, not sure where that will go. As that is brought to them, we'll bring it to you,
Okay,
okay?
so
But just
staffing may change and we
Yep.
stay tuned.
There's a few
Yeah.
personnel, just.
Is this FTE increases or actual salary wage
It's just general
adjustment?
personnel changes, yeah, so,
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. It's gonna be brought to the Board of Selectmen, not sure if they'll accept or
Okay.
not, but it's about 23,000 to the bottom line. That's the only other thing that I didn't write in there, so.
Yep.
So I think that's,
Between the acceptance offer and the memo, or something like that, it feels like.
Yes, uh-huh. Sure does.
Except at work, we don't know how much
Yep.
they get paid, which is a good thing, I suppose. Okay, thank you. All right, that's it for department review, right?
yes, for tonight.
Okay, good,
Stay tuned for tomorrow.
all right. And so I know that leaves an item or two on the agenda, inclusive of minutes. I know we've made a mess here, and then we'll cover our,
They should be in your packet. This
oh,
time.
thank you, yeah, got it
Few
here.
minutes. I think
Oh,
I
I'm
might have
sorry.
made a mistake the last time, but they're in your packets tonight.
Well, we've got, so let's go
Oh,
in
you
order
wanna
of
go
the
for the
agenda, sorry, next
meetings,
meetings, yeah,
Mhm.
my bad. Okay, so tomorrow evening, of course, we have additional department reviews, and then so then we'll settle into our kind of Wednesday. We're doubling up this week
Yes,
for not
just
having
for
met last week,
yeah.
so it won't be quite as painful. But thank you, and then, it looks like, yeah, we're in our weekly, meetings for a couple of weeks. Then we're over at the multi-purpose room at Bucher for another tripartite, and that's what Leslie was referring to, the February 7th with the school committee in Hamilton.
Right, so that's why we had to move our meeting on the 8th.
Mhm.
We
Right.
normally would have met on the 7th,
Mhm.
we're moving ours to the 8th.
So we'll be doubling up again,
Yeah.
but all
So,
for a good reason.
Are the Board of Selectmen at those meetings? I don't see it, but.
Yeah, it doesn't say it. I think generally speaking, they try to go. I know there were some conflicts last time, so they didn't call to order, didn't have a quorum, but, there was some attendance and,
Right, yeah, one.
and I-
There's representation, yeah.
yeah, some representation and, certainly they have an interest in it. I think it's safe to say they'll probably be there. This is it's such a big group of people anyway. It's, as you know, it's, can be a challenge to kind of stay focused on a point, but we know, I think for that meeting in particular, that is where we'll be back on the receiving end of information as to what the school committee is adopting for.
So those meetings are back to back, one doesn't take the other, I mean,
No.
they're
No,
two
that-
separate meetings.
Right, so our 8th
Right.
meeting will be with the Hamilton FinCom for the joint programs. So on the schedule, it's the joint rec and the joint library that we'll
Right.
have on the 8th.
Right,
So
for
the
shared
other-
department expenses.
Shared, yes, the shared
so
expenses.
the other one on the 8th with
And the
Bucher
ponds,
School.
other, it's not just them two, but pond and,
Oh, okay.
So we don't do the one at the Bucher School on the 8th?
yes, because this wasn't available here, so we had to have the Bucher, I believe.
Okay.
It was a room issue.
Sorry, I'm confused.
I had Nikki, so what you see here is where we are.
Okay.
This is what's been reserved.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Okay.
So we do the joint rec at the Bucher School?
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
And
Thank you.
library, presumably.
Little slow.
Library, pond, any of those
A little
joints
slow.
where we
Right.
share
No problem, Mike, I'm sure.
services or programs. Yes.
For the.
So this schedule here that
Joint
I
rec.
also put in your folder
Joint library.
packet is up to date and right on target.
Thank you for that. Check off. Okay. All right.
Just on schedules,
Yeah,
Alex?
yeah, definitely.
I have some notes here. I just want to see if these are tentative still as they are. I have February 14th, FinCom final review of all budgets. February, so this gets to our Wednesday schedule, it looks like. February 21, joint FinCom with BOS. April 2, FinCom, we hold the warrant hearing. Does that sound,
It does. I don't have the
April 7th,
master
the town meeting.
schedule right now.
I could verify it and send, or check, we can bring that up
Yeah, I
tomorrow.
think it'd be great.
Want to do that?
Yeah, that'd be great
I'm
to
not sure, I didn't
keep,
bring that with me.
keep
Just
as far front and possible of
yeah,
changes.
it's just easier to
Yeah.
do your planning.
Yeah.
Now, is that a schedule you got at the, is that the one that was sent out? I printed them all.
Gary, I don't know, I got it on a note card here
Okay, we'll do it
myself,
tomorrow.
so.
There's, yeah, I mean, you've got a soft copy of that one.
It's probably
There's a
I
couple-
got one we
but it's changed a
distributed, and then I
couple
got one from the
times.
school committee.
Yeah.
Right.
They were-
I think they may move the 14th, if I remember that meeting, because it's the
Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day.
Wednesday. They may move that to the 13th.
I thought it was,
Okay.
I thought I just listened to the last meeting, and it was the 13th,
Okay.
that they had been talking about it in their open review of,
Anyway, so we'll confirm those meetings.
yes,
We've
yes.
got 2 weeks locked down, but
Yeah,
we
sorry.
will, yeah, I bug Leslie from time to time. Are there any changes to the calendar? She'll forward it along and I'll just send it to all of us.
I
Certainly any changes.
update as soon as I,
Soon as
Make
you
it
know,
available,
as soon as
yeah.
you can.
Much appreciated.
as soon as I know the date.
So we've got 2 meeting notes in the packet, November 20th, December 20th. So the November 20th we held on, and I think they're in the, doesn't, you have them?
Everybody has them in
Okay.
their packets.
Then I just put something open. No, I got them, thank you, got them here. Appreciate it. The November 20th we held on, and edits were provided back. 12/20, you have only as of yesterday or so via soft copy, your first hard copy unless you printed it. So what we can do is, ideally based on the number of lapsed meetings and timeframe, we should certainly vote on November 20th after review and discussion. And the 12/20 are, I've looked at them. I looked at them on the train this evening, and I'm comfortable with them. But if you're comfortable voting on them, or if you'd like more time, I know Carrie and I have discussed like if we're gonna kind of compile maybe some edits ahead of time if you want to receive it. Oh, and by the way, before I go into that, Catherine is taking notes this evening remotely through the magic of the interwebs and a live
Hi,
meeting.
Catherine.
So, yeah, so thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Kathy.
Duly noted. But so we may kind of fall into a process whereby if you want to get an early look at these from Catherine,
Sure, yeah.
but, and then I think it's important for everybody to be able to see if you have edits, what they are, and we'll follow into a normal review process, but, so.
That works. So, yeah, on the November 20th ones, I did do some edits, which are distributed. And I haven't done any, I haven't looked at the December
Okay.
20th ones.
Are they mostly
They're not.
typo? Like,
The most substantive
whatever.
one is on the second page, the term town council. I have a question there. Is this the
Just
correct?
12/20 or 11/20?
This is
1120?
11/20? I don't
On the
see
second
it
page.
deleted.
No, it's just the question. It says town
thanks.
council opined on this matter, saying the BOS FinCom. I just have a question. My understanding is that town council is a type of government that's different than Board of Selectmen, town meeting form of government.
So that's.
But maybe in this town, people say town council.
It's different words sounding the same, so that would be COUNSEL. That would be our outside counsel.
Oh,
That's an attorney that we have on
Correct.
contract.
More
It's a lawyer.
specifically, KP Law.
okay.
So, yeah.
So that answers that question. And the rest are, I don't consider the rest substantive.
Yeah, you raise a good point. That does kind of imply like a different organization, but yep, that's our town outside counsel.
I move we accept the November 20th minutes.
Thanks, Jim.
I'll second that.
Thanks, David. Any other?
No, so the only
Comments or
change then
questions?
would be just the
Okay.
spelling, CIL to SEL.
Okay, in the second page, paragraph beginning with a lengthy conversation followed regarding the potential for an override, and goes on to describe town council being consulted to change that to council,
Yeah.
with that minor change included.
Oh, that's why you're a questioner. Good for
Right,
you.
right,
ILE.
yeah,
Makes all the difference. Very good.
does make a difference. Any other comments or?
Yeah, I'm going to abstain. And it's not for what you think. I know what you think. I have a problem, so I guess I really didn't want to do it here, do it offline. I can't get into any of the Wenham emails. I keep getting a firewall that says your system's not secure, so I can't, so I have to just, I wanted to do this afterwards, just ask everyone what's their email addresses. So I'll use my personal email address and
Okay,
get
but
myself
we'll
off the
have-
Wenham.
But I
Because
can,
I've been trying to get in
Yeah.
multiple times, and I
Have
keep
you
getting,
have you talked to
I had that
micro support?
problem.
yeah, and I get
talk to
I
Nick.
get nothing, I don't get
Yeah.
any
Okay.
support.
Talk to Nick. I'll
I
talk
had
to
that
Nikki.
problem, and Nikki and Micro Support fixed it in like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let me
So
talk to
I'm
Nikki,
just-
but if
okay.
you
Yeah.
And do you
want
have that
to
problem? Because
give
your
your
emails get
personal
bounced back to
email
me
as
all the
well,
time,
I'll
too.
keep doing both.
I did.
No,
Right, no,
I-
you're just, you're gonna
I
just,
think- I think I'll just
I had to.
do the personal email. It's,
Yeah,
You want-
the problem
yeah,
I-
because I've had too many trouble over the
Let's-
years.
I've had a password
So you
problem,
wanna
so I
put
had my
your personal
password
email.
changed, I can get it.
Sure.
But you're right.
no,
mine
I just need to
when
know
I-
Oh,
that,
I'll
so-
give it to you
Okay, yeah.
before.
go
I'll give it
bounces
to you.
back to me, too.
So I haven't had a chance to read or look.
So I had all
Okay.
those issues, and
That's all right.
Nikki
It's nothing
Don't
to
feel
do with
rushed. No
Micro
problem.
Support,
I understand, believe me, we'll,
fixed them.
I think conversations
Uh,
offline about the email will continue,
Okay.
only to start, because I have more on that as
So I
well. but,
started using your
um,
Gmail account also.
Yahoo.
So I used, oh, Yahoo, yeah.
You
I
still
used
need
two
to
Gmail
approve this,
accounts.
though.
And if you wish to take some time, you're more than welcome to, understanding that the Wenham email
Oh, that's okay.
is giving you problems, as it has
That's
us in the past, no doubt.
That's okay.
And of course, should you not wish to vote, you're more than welcome to abstain, of course, there too.
Unless you need to vote.
Some of the other people abstaining
If
for more
you
minutes
need to
vote.
vote, then like, yeah, okay, I'm in.
All right, if no other.
It's just meetings.
If no other discussion on the November 20th notes, then we'll bring it to a vote to accept as per the motion with the edit to council, as well for the record. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then the question is if we've had sufficient review for the December notes, December 20th meeting, FinCom notes. So I'll
I'm
open
going through
that
them
to.
right now.
Okay, yeah, take your time.
This was the meeting where Carrie knows the difference between the $5,000.
That's enough
Yes.
to read.
and all that,
It's on the
right?
second
But that was
page,
just
it got
because it was a
corrected.
3
That's
year.
correct, yeah, the reserve fund transfer for the tree inventory and the
It's a
service in
number
particular, and in the follow-up, which Leslie provided in
Yep,
detail.
explained it.
Got that
Yeah,
in
explained it, and the
So we saved
multiple
some
year
time.
contract.
So we saved some time technically.
We did, and those were all
A
great
couple minutes,
questions.
couple minutes.
Typo.
Those are all great
Typo.
questions, and,
Don't talk to check it.
you know, those will be things we'll uncover in the meeting, as Carrie Sharp-Eye did, and then there's broader questions too, which oftentimes we can address beforehand. So if there's general questions, Peter wasn't here that night, so
Right.
you raised a question as to why Bartlett. You know, those types of kind of, give me the, you know, the quick and dirty on the direction here, just kick them over to Leslie in an email up front, if we have those, that is. And she'll liaise with Peter as needed to get us that, so we can be all the more prepared for these discussions as we get into it, because there's, we always love to talk about trees, which is good. We all love, I love trees. My brother works in trees, he's a tree guy. We're all here for that reason, but there's a whole lot more to talk about,
I don't know, Dan.
We did talk a lot about trees.
right? We do, as we have in years past.
I tend to overlook spelling errors, but when everyone's done it. I don't, before we vote, I don't have a problem with them.
I think from a style standpoint, short, you know, the brevity is there. And to the extent there are, you know, spelling matters.
I have a very
Yes, it
small
does.
comment.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be operating B budget, or is it
That's a
operating
typo.
budget?
I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's probably a typo, yeah.
I didn't know
yeah.
if that was, like,
A
there's an A and a B,
secondary,
or, yeah.
I sure as hell
Okay.
hope not. Good question, good catch.
So, I don't have any comments,
Okay.
if you can believe it.
I'll hold. I'll hold. Okay, then I will make the motion then to approve the December 20th, 2017 FinCom meeting notes as presented, having clarified that the operating budget is as such, and no secondary budget under the updates heading.
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, David. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
All right.
And we will meet again tomorrow evening, same time, same place, this time around, right? For jam-packed, and we're just over an hour and a half, a little more, not too bad. Getting into the meat of the departments. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, guys.